Hello and welcome to the dungeon. My name's Dan, and in today's video we've been playing a lot of Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, or Sekiro. I'm sure Sekiro is probably the correct pronunciation, but if I say Sekiro or something else in the purpose of this video, then I'm just lazy, so please don't hold that against me. Anyway, first of all, in Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, trust me, you will be dying a lot more than twice. So this is the most recent demon slash dark slash Bloodborne Souls type game from Software. And by the way, talking of names, From Software is a bit annoying saying from Software. Anyway, it's one of those games which is very difficult, a very steep learning curve. You're thrust into an area with lots of enemies, and should you use a save point, all the enemies that you've killed respawn. So you have to be very good at killing said enemies and progressing to the next checkpoint. So, cards on the table here. I have played some Dark Souls, but I didn't get too far. I did appreciate this was a good game with a lot of exploration and things to discover, with a lot of nuances to the combat, and given more time, I probably will go back to Dark Souls at some point, and I have yet to play the other titles I mentioned. But I wanted to test myself, and what better game to test oneself in 2019 than the misery simulator, which is Sekiro Shadows Die Twice. From all accounts, this one's even more difficult than Dark Souls, which, yeah, they both seem rather tricky to me, so I will let others judge that. But you know what, there is far more to this game than the difficulty, so let's dive into it. You play a guy called Wolf, and you might be thinking, isn't he called Sekiro? Yes, sort of. It's a bit of a tangled plot, which you might expect if you're familiar with the Dark Souls games, but mainly he's called Wolf. Anyway, it's set in feudal Japan. I was told what time period it was, but I can't remember, so just trust me on it. A lot of ninjas and samurai and all kinds of feudal Japan stuff going on. Your main character, Wolf, doesn't say a lot. He's from the Cloud Strife Drama School of Ellipsis when he comes to speaking. But that's okay, because his sword will do the speaking for him. He is a shinobi, which I guess really is their form of ninja, again showing my ignorance of the time period, and he is very good at sneaking up to someone and stabbing them in the throat. And you will be doing plenty of that in this game. If you're thinking of some kind of pacifist run, ha 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 ha, go elsewhere, not in this game. It's all about murder, murder, murder! Anyway, the game begins with him being bodyguard of this little lord, this young man, and you have to get him in this house and get him out of the country, because I guess the Ashina clan, or network, or whoever, are there, and they don't like you, but they do want the young lord for his resurrection power. Again, it's a bit of a convoluted story. So just explaining what happens in the very first mission, not to give too much away, but it does matter going forward. You fight a guy called Genichiro Ashina, I believe, and during said fight, which is extremely difficult and not one you're likely to win, he will then chop off your hand, Devil May Cry 5 style. The young lord you're protecting gets kidnapped, and it's okay though, because you get to resurrect, and a very nice man creates for you a prosthetic arm, which enables you to do some cool stuff. From there, it's all about rescuing your charge and killing lots of things that get in your way. But there is more to it once you rescue him, but that would be going into spoilers territory. So in terms of progress, I've actually completed one playthrough of the game, but there are multiple endings that you can unlock. My ending might be seen as the bad one, but that's okay, because eventually I will get around to seeing them all. Now, as Wolf, or Sekiro, you will come across a lot of different characters on your journey, a lot of merchants, a lot of people just giving information to you. I guess you could say there are some sub-quests in this game, such as if you find this one guy who doesn't like the samurai around him and because he's a bit of a criminal, and should you kill said samurai he'll give you some information. So I guess there is some of that to it, but mainly it's one long quest, which takes a few turns here and there. Now some might say this is an RPG, but I don't think I would be one of them. For a start, you have a very limited playstyle as to how you can go about your thing. You have to play stealthy, or if you wanted to charge out in front of the enemy and just deflect, dodge and stab your way, that I guess would work, but some enemies will just smack you in the face repeatedly. There are various different sword techniques you can learn throughout the game, which is quite interesting. If you complete a certain quest or you kill a certain enemy, you'll gain access to a text which will give you a different skill tree to unlock. There are levels in this game. If you kill so many people, you gain access to a new level, and from there you can save your points and then when you want to spend them on said skills. Likewise, there are various items you can find as well which will be extremely useful. These include things like a handful of ash to distract your opponent, from barrels of oil to help set them on light. Item management is very important, and generally speaking items do not respawn, so once you come across something and you take it, that will no longer be there going forward. Now enemies do drop items, so again it's more incentive for you to kill. In some ways, this game is almost like a Metroidvania, as you have to unlock certain skills before progressing to the next area. This includes being able to dive and breathe underwater. There are lots of parts of the map which has pools or lakes or rivers, so once you get that ability, you can replay previous sections and discover lots of treasure, or kill a fish, or a headless ghost maybe. With the grapple hook as well, I do appreciate the verticality it provides you, and in some scary situations it can allow you to escape from them and then run back to a bonfire. It is a little annoying as to how situational it is. I would have thought that you could use a grapple hook on any kind of building corner or exterior feature like a gargoyle or a hook. No, just certain times when the game says it's appropriate. Other times, there's nothing. Make do without. Now there is dialogue in this game, as I mentioned, with people talking to you, and you do have some dialogue options. Most of it includes saying something or saying nothing. Okay? There was one where I came across about halfway in the game where my young lord asked me to do something and I had the option to refuse or not, and I chose to refuse, but then it kind of didn't make any difference, so I'm not really sure if there is branching dialogue options. Now, the narrative has some branches to it, which is very interesting. So, a big thing about this game is exploration. Once you've come out of the main area and you can wander around the streets as you see fit, there are parts which open up. It's definitely not open world, I wouldn't say that, but it's a very large connected level, I think is a better description. Once you do that, there are plenty of places you don't need to go to. You can just ignore should you wish, but if you do, then you'll get certain benefits. So more items, other things for your prosthetic arm, plot points, which if you want to know what happens and where your character really comes from. By the way, he, like various other Japanese protagonists, has a very bad case of amnesia, so a lot of other characters will fill in the blanks for him. And in one particular area, which I really appreciated, you get to relive one of your memories, where you go back to this settlement which is on fire, and you have to once again save your lord. Storytelling in this game is not linear by any stretch. What about the combat? And this is possibly the biggest draw of the game. Now let me go back to Devil May Cry 5 just for 1 second, if you'll let me. In Devil May Cry 5, I would say 90% of the time you feel like a badass and 10% of the time you feel like a stooge. In Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, I'd say 90% of the time you feel like a stooge and 10% of the time you feel like an absolute mega awesome badass who can kill hordes of enemies in a single stroke. And I think that is the main pull of this game, and the reason why it has to be so difficult and punishing if you mess up. But like any other game, all the enemies have a certain pattern to them, so memorizing their attacks, finding out when they're most vulnerable and going in for the strike is the way to go. Suddenly an area with 2 or 3 guys doesn't seem so daunting when you're able to stealth kill one of them, kill another in 2 hits before they can draw their sword, and the third's the guy with a rifle so you can duck under his shot and go in from the back. It's a very fluid combat system. It doesn't reward button mashing, I will say that. You have to really decide what kind of attack you want to go for. If you want to go for a regular swipe, if you want to try and do a dodge roll, if you want to go for a stronger strike, or if you want to go for like a lunge, if you want to use like an ability or an item. And positioning is so important. Attacking a person head on and they're likely to deflect your attack, but if you can get them from the side or from behind, even if it's not stealthy, you will do severe damage. Now posture is very important in this game, and you can actually win a lot of times without reducing your enemy's health or vitality, but simply inflicting enough posture damage on them to make them effectively weak. You do that by attacking as you would expect, but also by blocking at the instant they try to land a blow against you, which does a great deal of damage and allows you the opportunity to finish them off. You can apply this ability even when fighting bosses, and so often when I was playing, I was able to land a death blow and they still had plenty of vitality left over. And with the bosses, a lot of them do have specific counters to look for. So for the general on his horse, I didn't realise this until after the boss battle, and it would have helped me a lot if I had known, but because the horse is an animal, it's scared of firecrackers. If I had bothered to pick some up before facing him, I could have made that match a lot easier. A lot of enemies will also telegraph their attacks, which is nice of them, particularly when a big symbol comes on the screen so you know something big is coming your way, so get out of the way. Your prosthetic arm will also be essential in this game because it allows you to do things like fire shurikens out, or a flame vent, or some kind of poison spinning attack. Basically, the variety in terms of what you would normally get from basic weapons is all in the arm. You will always have a sword and a dagger as well. You won't generally have anything else in this game, which might disappoint some people who like the fact that in Dark Souls you could just choose a sword, axe, bow, spear, whatever. In this one it's sword and your cyborg arm, which also can be upgraded as well when you visit the nice man who fitted it for you. Should you die though, then good news is that you have resurrection power and you can come back one more time, sometimes more if you get the upgrades. This though has its own cost. You see, when you die, resurrection or not, you have a chance to regain your gold and your experience, because hey, when you die, I guess the thing that kills you will take half your gold and they'll feel charitable and leave you the other half and experience. Sometimes though, you can get all of it back due to unforeseen aid. However, the more resurrection times you use, the chances are that resurrection aid will decrease. And that is reflected by people you meet coughing and spluttering with the dragon rot. Now, I do like it in games very much where your actions or what happens to you is reflected in the game world itself. Think Dishonored. If you kill a lot of people, you get more rats. This is kind of similar. The only thing is, I don't think it goes particularly far enough. When I was playing this game, I had a lot of dragon rot, basically. I died quite substantially, and the people around me suffered for it, and they were coughing and spluttering and generally not having a great time. But they didn't die, from what I saw at least. Apparently dragon rot is terminal, but the people I ran into, you know, were still able to sell me their wares or fit me a new prosthetic arm. You do get options and ways to remove dragon rot temporarily, so everyone's fine again until you start building it up again. But honestly, if no one really dies, what's the point? And you might say, but your unforeseen aid will decrease. here's the thing, I don't rely on my unforeseen aid at all. When I get to a boss, I'm thinking to myself, I am likely to get killed in this match. So what I'll do is I'll spend all my gold I can, buy stuff that I might need, or even stuff that I might need later, or even just things that I can then sell later down the line. I will try to make sure my experience has just gotten over one area, so it's like a tiny bit into the next, so if I lose it, it's no big deal, and then I begin. I don't particularly care about unforeseen aid, to be honest with you. It's nice, I guess, to get stuff back, but I don't count on it, and neither should you. Anyway, bosses, and Sekiro Shadows Die Twice has some hard as balls bosses, whether it be a guy on a horse, a raging fireball, or that bastard Sekiro and his shocking lightning powers. This game has plenty of them. Most are compulsory, so you have to learn how to beat them. And my experience of this was, they destroyed me a lot of the time. But the strength of this game is that I wanted to keep on seeing what was behind the next corner, so I had to learn how to beat them. I had to know what their attacks would be, and know when to block, when to dodge, and when to strike. And slowly, I started chipping away at these bosses' health, and eventually, I killed them. Now it might seem insurmountable when you first encounter something big and nasty, such as a great giant white snake, for example, but don't take an attempt as just the be all and end all. If you die, learn why you died, learn at what position did the enemy kill you. Maybe if you tried from the side, it would be a little easier. Maybe if you followed its arse around the map, maybe you can get in some more strikes. Keep trying, keep learning, keep experimenting, and eventually you'll kill every boss in the game. But Dan, you say, what do you think about Sekiro Shadows Die Twice having an easy mode? Okay, let's get to this. So, the argument is that if you own a game, you are entitled to be able to experience all of the game. I say no, you're not entitled to experience all of the game. You are entitled to the chance to experience all of the game. And unlike a film or a novel, the game will put challenges in front of you. That's the whole point of the challenge and being able to overcome them. In fact, overcoming the challenges is the game, particularly in this sense. But should it have an easy mode? I would say if Dark Souls and Sekiro and Bloodborne had an easy mode, would they be as well regarded as they are? Because there are plenty of games which act like these, where you are third person, you have abilities, hacking, slashing away through enemies, and going on from there. Think Diablo, that's got a bunch of different difficulty modes. This has one standard, and I think that is the calling card of Dark Souls. And to further make my point, think of all the pretenders that have arrived since then. Neo, The Surge, Lord of the Fallen, Star Wars, Jedi Fallen Order, maybe, if what I hear is to be believed. The value of these games is being able to play them and eventually to beat them. You might say it's just bragging rights, but so what? If that's what people want. Would I personally want an easy mode in Sekiro? Really? No. I can appreciate people who do want one though, so they can see more of the story without the frustrations of dying for 1,000 times. But for that, there is YouTube. Or you can use cheats on PC. And I think From Software are doing right if they maintain what we've been doing for these games in terms of the difficulty. Hopefully the Elden Ring will also not disappoint. So I've been playing Sekiro Shadows Die Twice on the PlayStation 4, the standard one, and I must say I'm quite impressed with things like the draw distances. You get to a high point and suddenly you can see the entire landscape before you. Distant mountains which you'll need to get to at some point, and courtyards, lakes, that kind of thing. I wouldn't say it's probably the prettiest game I've played in a while. It certainly does its job, and there are moments where the effects are quite nice, such as on the water. And when you visit the village on fire, I particularly like the fires and whatnot going on. Fire is quite difficult to achieve in a video game, so props to them for that. I think rather than trying to make a pretty game, what they've gone for is to make an authentic game to the time period. But you will get the pagodas and the sliding doors and the temples and the forests and everything like that. From an appearance point of view, I found it very immersive, which is only doubled when you include the soundtrack. So again, they've gone for very authentic, so lots of pipe work, lots of drums, that kind of. And of course, when it comes to the music, whenever there's an epic boss battle, it'll break out the violins and start getting all orchestral. For other ambient sounds, this game does well, including things like floorboards as you're going over a wooden surface. Although one thing they could work on is the fact that enemies generally ignore most sounds that you make. So you could literally knock over some furniture as you're creeping up on an enemy and he wouldn't know you were there until your blade was in his throat. Now there is some things you need to avoid, such as firecrackers on the ground, but all in all you can be as loud as you want and they won't know it until they look in your direction. For a stealth game, that's a little weak. There are times when you can sneak up to a group of people and you can listen to their conversation. It would give you a listen prompt, so press the right button and you can hear what they're saying. It would have been nice if these soldiers just chatted amongst themselves as they patrolled. And I think when it comes to the overhearing mechanic, I prefer if there wasn't a prompt. I would prefer actually if rather than the game telling you you should overhear what these two guys are saying, you should think, these two guys seem to be saying something. If I try and overhear, maybe I'll hear something. I would have preferred that way instead. But hey, it's just a small niggle. Going back to the enemies, and there is a lot of variety here. So just thinking of the humans one, you've got a lot of different armors, so you got your basic guys without armor, samurai, other things in between, monks, lots of different weapons to include as well, some with swords, some bare-fisted, some with spears, bows, guns, lots of different things for the human enemies to use. And then you got animals as well. You've got dogs, you've got various reptiles which poison you. You've got monkeys. Sometimes you even get monkeys with guns, because that's a great idea. And of course you've got the zombies. And zombie monks with giant centipedes in them. That was a bit surprising when I first encountered them, but a nice little unique enemy type right there. It never felt like the enemy variety got old for me, unlike say Far Cry New Dawn. There always seems to be something new in a different area you come across. So watch out for them. Other things to mention include the fact that there are status ailments in this game which you can inflict on the enemy, but they too can inflict on you. So things like being shocked, or being really scared, or poisoned. If you approach the giant ape from behind, he has a tendency to fart on you and apply the poison status to your health. Not very pleasant. And my personal favourite is fire. If you have the means to soak them in oil, definitely find a way to put them on fire and the fun begins. So all in all, my time with Sekiro Shadows Die Twice has been a very fulfilling experience. It's a very strong single player title that really makes you work for every bit of ground you come across. I do have a few small niggles with it, so things like there's no map, so I can get lost quite easily, as well as the fact that there's no journal mechanic, so I would find myself in a place and wondering, where exactly am I supposed to be going? Is this the right way? Is this an optional path? Should I be here? Some of the enemy AI can be balked as well. For example, on screen is footage of a guy just wailing at a corner, and one time this nice lady with a basket on her head got trapped, and I was able to take full advantage of that and poison her without taking a single bit of damage. But the biggest case of enemy stupidity comes for one enemy who you can literally lure onto a poisonous sea and watch as their health slowly goes down. This was actually a mandatory boss I had to kill before going to the next stage, and you still have to get close to finish them off with a death blow, but still, it was probably the easiest boss battle ever, and all it took was time. Other problems include the camera. So you have the option to lock onto enemies, which does make trying to slash them to death a lot easier. In one instance, I was fighting two giant apes, and I was getting DP'd by them pretty hard. A lot of it because they were jumping around, smashing the ground, doing all kinds of damage. Focusing on one was quite troublesome, so I had to literally have both in my view at all times. And then when the camera does a 180 and suddenly you don't know where you are on the screen, and there's monkeys everywhere, and it's not great. It's a very fast camera and very disorienting, and if the enemy you got locked on goes off screen, then you don't know where they are, so you have to find them again and lock onto them once more. In terms of performance, I have noticed a few issues where various people will just vibrate like they're on some kind of spin cycle, or their body will just stay in the air. What's particularly hilarious is when I kill the guy, I've gone off to do something else for a bit, and I come back to that place and I see the body just still flailing around and dying somewhere. With lots of enemies on screen, the frame rate for the PS4 at least will definitely get tanked, as what happened to me when I approached a bunch of monkeys is it became a very bloody slideshow. And I would have preferred a bit more dialogue options, particularly with the various NPCs and merchants you come across, although saying that you can give various people booze and they will give you more information, so booze is good, look out for that. On the whole though, my time with Sekiro has been extremely positive. The exploration, the challenging combat, just seeing the authentic recreation of the world itself has been really interesting. So for me, Sekiro Shadows Die Twice gets 4 big black cocks out of 5. Thanks for watching, and I shall see you on the next video, which will probably be Mortal Kombat 11. Now, if you'll excuse me, I need to go and die some more on New Game Plus. Ciao for now.